This skating lesson is brought to you by Audible, where you can listen to audiobooks of your favorite titles, including Alone by Bill Jones, The Triumph and Tragedy of John Curry. Enter the code TSL Visionaries 20 at checkout for a free audiobook for new Audible members. Alone is also the January book club selection for the TSL Visionaries Book Club. To join this community, you can subscribe by selecting the Join button on YouTube. The Join button is to the left of where you hit subscribe beneath a YouTube video. If you would prefer to join the community on Facebook, please click the link in the description box below.
Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Lees.
And I'm Jonathan Byer.
And we have Alyssa Sisney. And who is this with us?
This is Rocky.
The aptly named. Yeah.
How old is Rocky? How old is he?
He's 5.5, I believe.
Okay.
And ready to go back to bed.
He looks tired.
Yeah.
He's been watching too much skating, right?
Too much this weekend.
Tiring.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. He's here for the Rocky free dance, obviously. Now, Elizabeth,
Yes, there we go.
can you explain to people, like, you know, we set up windows of when we can record, and I always get text messages like, well, we're going to be in the forest chopping down trees this day or moving rocks. Like, do you realize that you were what Carolyn Taylor joked that she was, and I have nothing? Like, you're a soft lumberjack, right? Like, this is your actual calling. Yeah.
I don't know if it's my calling, but I really enjoy doing it because I love being outside. And we have 13 acres of forest, and we're not chopping, like, it's protected forest, so we can't chop down trees. But there were like 8 or 9 trees that are too close to the house, and they're 100 feet tall, so they had to come down. Like, even the forestry people that say, like, you have to protect the forest, or like you have to take these trees down because they'll fall on your house. So we're sawing them up, and we're like stacking them to dry, and then they're going to be our floorboards in the renovation, which is going to be really cool. And then there's pardon, yeah,
It's very
that's gonna be
resourceful.
really cool.
Yeah.
It's
Sandra
fun.
also likes to renovate. You know, this is why you should be doing a program together. You could renovate. She's like, oh wait, she's Canadian, so renovating the cottage. Yes, the cottage, right?
I find it hard to believe that Sandra is cutting down trees and using that.
She's not cutting down the trees, but like Alyssa could
No.
cut down the trees, make the floorboard. I feel like Sandra would do cabinets, right? Like, I feel like she does, like, I don't think she's as much of a soft lumberjack, right? Like, I think there are layers to this.
Probably
Yeah.
what color to stain it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
But how about the Europeans? There were actually people in the audience like crazy.
I think Lithuania should host every event. I thought the aesthetic of the arena was beautiful with like the solid purple lines and everything.
Yes.
Full crowd, gorgeous camera work. Even when they were
Yeah.
showing, like, the public clapping, there were like these close-ups and blurry things, and it was really high end, and the audience was not only full but super in it.
So
Super.
someone FaceTimed me from the arena, from like the media section, the coach media section the other day. And of course, Terry was right behind him as we were on the FaceTime. And I was like, amazing, right? Like, just incredible. But it was like the arena had so much energy, even though they don't have like the upper tier, right? Like, it was just such a good arena and energy, and the event of the season so far.
What do you think? I mean, besides the fact that it's Europeans, what do you think they do to get that many people there?
I don't know.
That was my question for you.
I think that whatever they did, they need to do to other people. Even if they gave those tickets away, you get so much more back by the event being big, by people spending money, by tourism, by your concessions, everything.
Every program became that much more exciting.
Yeah.
It did, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And it's nice to skate. I mean, I can't imagine, like, with Canadian nationals where there's no people in the stands. I mean, I think every year that I compete at nationals, there was still enough people in the stands to make it feel exciting. And I can't imagine going to a national or international event where, I mean, sometimes internationals, because it depends on where you are, but like not having energy in the stands.
I once drove to Reading, Pennsylvania to see Alyssa Sisney perform in a show, and there were like tens of people in the audience, and then they were dressed in Halloween costumes. It was so creepy as an audience member to be like, there's no one even in this section near me. Yes, it was an empty old arena feels
And even if you're an enthusiastic member of the audience, it feels weird to be as vocal when there are not so many people. You don't whoop and holler the same way if you're one of 10.
Yes, like when Alyssa Cisney was skating with her future husband dressed as a hunchback, I wasn't able to woo woo because no one around me was woo wooing, right? Like, so that was.
They denied you the chance to woo woo. Yeah, okay.
Yes, I was denied that opportunity.
And obviously, Lithuania not known for having a huge skating crowd or audience. So also all these discussions about you need a star in your country in order to attract people. Again, I don't know how they got them there, but they were enthusiastic and it just totally made the event for me.
Yes. So I loved it. I was getting a text from Skating Scores that came through as it was coming here. I called him yesterday. He was helping me with the tech thing. Louisiana accent. Didn't peg that.
From the Skating Scores master himself. Because there's such a tie in there. Yeah.
And then he was talking about his attraction to Jonathan Byer, and we went over whether or not you'd be compatible. You know?
Well, if his website is any indication, like he seems organized and great.
Very organized. Yes. He
Something
knows how to do
admire.
coding. He taught me about Google Collab. We're doing all the nerdy things together. I was like, yes. Okay. There was some software called Whisper, I'm like, because I'm trying to add captions. Oh yes. So
Nice.
yeah. Alyssa, if you could like slide into his DMs, he was telling me that like skaters don't slide into his DMs, but like he does get to talk with Phil Hirsch. And I was like, that makes me so happy that Phil Hirsch and skatingscores.com are speaking together about the number. Yes. I was like, I could see this appreciation.
Nice tie-in moment because Dave, I did watch the episode with Christine and Dave and Maya. Is her name, right? Yeah.
And Phil is trying to steal Maya from me. We're just pointing this out.
Do you blame him? She's delightful. She's absolutely wonderful. And the whole conversation, loved it. Loved it. One of my favorite things you've done this season. Yeah.
You know, we had 3 strong women and Phil Hirsch that were, you know, on screen, and I felt like it was so we're gonna, you know, I would like to do things with more reporters and shift it based on if we're closer to gymnastics or the Olympics or base, because I think that like the average sports fan who likes the Olympics does know at least a little bit about the other sports, or perhaps would want to learn. Like if you're nerdy intellectual enough to be watching that show, you can handle talking about Tom Daley or the bigger issues of sport without having to know all the intricacies of every single move. And I think it could make the sport more accessible to people by having those kinds of conversations. So
when even the topic we're discussing, sorry to jump over that, even the conversations you were having about like doping and banning and all of these sorts of things, it was interesting to have references from other sports, because a lot of the conversation happening within the skating community is closed to the skating community. So having that basis, that reference point of what they have done in other sports, I find very interesting.
And
I think it's fun to have like different their different perspectives, because we see what they write, but to have them, you know, say more or how they feel or disagree with each other or agree with each other is fun to see, to hear more from them than just the blurb that they get to write.
Yeah. Interesting. And then even the conversation afterwards, like, so Christine had to run, and then like we finished talking and like just talking about Maya's background, that she used to be a political journalist who left at a certain point because of that. And that was just like a very interesting discussion. So there's like a lot of like richness there, and people who know languages, and who knew Maya had 3 kids and that she has a daughter who's going to university, and all of these kinds of questions. It was just like really fascinating to get that other perspective. I have some like goals in mind, like, because we've interviewed Yelena Wojciechowskaja before, and my original idea when I did it was, oh my God, like what if we just get all the big Olympic reporters from the different countries together? Because the truth is, everyone always goes, oh, this person's unbiased. No one is actually unbiased. We all have a bias. You have to acknowledge your own bias. And that's why you invite someone from another point of view so that you can have an intellectual discussion, knowing that you all come from a different bias. So when I always laugh and gag when people and roll my eyes when people like say that, oh, I like Maya, she's unbiased. No, she's not unbiased. She's being open-minded. And there's a difference in that because we all have a bias, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's the actual strength. Like in journalism, the first thing that you do is you write a bunch of papers about objectivity and whether anyone is actually objective and what that means. So it's like very philosophical, but that's how that starts. So, but yes, the average person doesn't understand what bias and objectivity means, like, and what that would mean in terms of reporting. So it's just
bias and objectivity, perhaps a big topic in the ice dance judging. Perhaps.
Yeah,
also.
Perhaps. What'd you think? Good segue.
Thank you.
Did you notice that the Finns had an extra element? Skating Scores was all about that. They, he noticed that they were judging chicanery amongst his favorite team, and he did not like that. Yes.
I didn't either because I love that Finnish team. And then when I saw that deduction, I wish there was a way in like those, the detailed segment sheets, where they're really breaking down every level and all of that sort of stuff. There was more an explanation of the deductions in that moment.
And the Finnish girl, she seems like she's from the spiritual home of Alyssa Cisney and Kira Korpi. Like, I don't know where that comes from. Like, they read books and they have long necks and they seem like they say, yes, very often. Like,
Yeah.
you get that vibe from the Finnish girl? Like, she
I love them so much.
Of course
I don't know.
them.
I don't know her. I know him because he did freestyle and he trained with us in the summers. But lovely people. But also,
wait, can we go through the people that like ran through? You trained with Benoit, correct?
Yes.
You were like, oh yes, he was scary with his partner. Oh yes, yes. So I was talking to like Alexei Beletsky, someone that I was talking to had trained with him, and I was like, yeah, I heard you were scary with your partner too. So that's okay. So
different cultural standards of how to treat someone, but it didn't roll over well here, and he got kicked out of the rink.
That's okay because I think that
which he will admit.
Yeah, it's okay. Navka got kicked out of Hackensack because they were stealing ice. So what happened is that Navka, Julin, Samvel, and Kostomarov, they were getting paid by the Russian Federation. But of course, the ice house would use punch cards for everything. So what they did is they would talk to the person up front, but those cards would never get punched. So if the cards are never getting punched, it's like, did you ever skate that session? Right? So eventually you're just pocketing money from the Federation. But like, also I have to say, like, that's like a cultural thing because Galina used to give me this, like, she would try to be inspirational about landing jumps. And she would look at me and she would go, this is life. You want it, you take it. You have money, you pay. You don't have money, you steal it. This is life. And I was like, that is Soviet philosophy. And Oksana Bayul does claim that you stole a lot of money from her. But I would just like think this in my mind and I'd be like, yes, Galina, absolutely.
Different viewpoint. Yeah.
Different viewpoint. Yes.
Yeah. How unbiased of her. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's who she is. Okay. Like,
but here, wait, just rewinding back to the Finnish team. This was one because I was obsessed with them when they won the bronze at Worlds last year.
That's why Navka went to Montclair. By the way, that's how they made the Montclair rink happen, is because they got kicked out of Hackensack. That's
it's like because of the Finnish team. I'm not following.
No, and it was a college student. It was a college student who uncovered it because she was like, why are they buying sweatshirts for like the random like low level peon at the because like that like when the Russians are in the rink they don't speak to everyone. Like skating is like they're too important to talk to like the person at the front desk. Like not everyone is just friendly, right? Like Robin Wagner actually knew like all the Zamboni guys apparently. Like she would say hi to them, they all liked her. Navka talked to no one. She would get changed in the lobby like full on topless in front of the kids. Okay, like this just like was going down at the ice house. So just like
point of view. Yeah.
Point of view,
100%.
But this is a woman who's Ukrainian, married to
trying to talk about the Finnish team and she's talking about that.
Dave is riled up. Navka's a trigger for Dave, I find.
I see.
No, you know what it is? It's like the complete bullshit of it all, and that they like pretend that she's Russian now. Like that's what it is. So yeah,
The revisionist history. I understand. Yeah,
the Finnish team and the girl that looks like Alyssa. I'm so tired.
Well, here's the thing. So I really like them because they work with Barbara's former partner, and he has both Finnish teams.
The
And
other Finnish teams freedance, I loved them. Wasn't it great?
And they both, to me, what they both share is this ability to be in the air so beautifully. Both of those women in the air, especially in their rotational lifts, that it's something, I don't know if they're doing that through him or that's just what they excel at, but both of them have some of the most outrageously amazing rotational lifts ever. When you had mentioned to me, Dave, like it was more apparent when we were talking with Maya, that it was maybe apparent that Yulia still was working through things in her transition to ice dance and things like that. I was trying to look a little bit differently this time. I still am completely obsessed with the free dance. It was the rhythm dance that I was like, oh, that's what they're talking about. A little bit in the patterns, you're like, okay, maybe that's not as deep and edgy as some of the others. But I love that free dance so much. I mean, if it had been a bronze medal performance, I wouldn't have complained. But I mean, they ended up down there. I'm sure this was a big disappointment for them, but I hope they don't question their material or the track they're on because it's so good to me.
I agree.
Yeah. What I think about is how interesting that when you would watch Barbara and Maurizio skate, it was very bombastic, right? They did Romeo and Juliet with the motorcycle crash.
Fantastic description of it.
Right? And they did this like disco program, like everything was very Tarasova, but apparently he has this like very intellectual, softer side, like with very artsy with his teams. And I find it very interesting because to me, when they skated together, I found them exciting, but I didn't connect with them. It was like watching like a freak show, right? Like it was just like you didn't know what was like a reality TV show. You didn't know what was gonna happen, right?
It was wild and unpredictable. That was the energy.
Right, but you didn't watch it for the art, right? You were like entertained, but not in a way where you felt there was like an artistic appreciation. And I find that it's very interesting that he has this inner artistry and her teams don't, right? She's able to give you personality and vigor, but not the emotional sensitivity that is like missing from all of her teams, especially the Italian team. It's just not there, that extra sensitivity. And Maurizio's a sensitive guy. Also
It'd be so interesting if they worked with each other a little bit.
I wondered that. Yeah.
They'd be better. They can't stand each other. They'd be better.
Oh.
Yeah, but I think it would be great because I think he would be great in terms of like the technique and the artistic packaging, and she'd be good at like that mental coaching, like, you know, before you go out and like that leadership. Because maybe his teams don't skate with enough of that gravitas just yet. And I think that in like 2 years, it could move them up a lot if they can develop that like swagger, right? To really compete.
But when you were talking, pardon me, when you were talking about the extra element deduction, did you find out any more information about that? For instance, where I think Barbara expressed she would never have a team that accidentally got a deduction. She seems so on top of like every small point making opportunity with the Italians in particular. That's almost why they thrive, I think. I could not figure out this extra element thing.
I'm going to look more into it over the next day. But I have to say, I feel sideways about it because all season people have said, oh, of course the Lithuanians are going to win a bronze medal. You know, Europeans are in Lithuania. And I find that embarrassing for a sport. Like, obviously, you want the hometown person to have the performance of their lives and earn it, right?
Yeah.
But what you don't want is for people to be like, well, of course they have to win. Worlds are in that country. And it's like, then this becomes like a commercial about like the sad puppy adoption, right? Like that's like patronizing and infantilizing of skaters rather than having it be an athletic event.
And the thing I never understood about that logic, although history shows us there is a little bump in these moments, is I'm like, but the judges are so varied and an international panel. I don't understand why they would suddenly feel also on board with we will give the bump to the hometown crowd. Allison and her partner did a great job here. I just could have seen like 3 or 4 teams winning that bronze instead for my personal aesthetic taste. I thought either of the French team or the Finnish would have, for me personally, been a more exciting artistic choice for that bronze medal slot. I mean, the crowd was going nuts, but I didn't find, and it was a pretty decisive bronze medal. Like it was several points. And I guess to my eye, it's not an ice dancer. I didn't see that big gap in the performances. It was a great story. It was a lovely moment. I did like feel excited for them in the moment. It just wasn't material based for me.
But Alyssa, like when you compete at home, like with a rowdy crowd, like with that kind of energy, like I'm thinking like LA Worlds on TV, I wasn't there. It looked very dynamic, the audience. And then obviously the audience in Russia is always. Do you find that energy can either like boost you or also like distract, intimidate you? Like, is that also something to adjust to? Like, what is the impact of the home audience?
I think it depends on how you feel about them too. Because if you feel like they're behind you, which, you know, hopefully they are because it is your home audience. But I don't think that in freestyle, at least, maybe not ice dance, when you have that home advantage, it's usually because you're skating well, there's that extra energy, and then you have extra energy, the crowd has extra energy, and the judges feel that because they're sitting in the audience and they feel that energy, and they maybe give you, you know, 1 or 2 higher GOEs than they would otherwise because they feel that you've skated that much better because they feel the energy from the crowd, you know, and maybe not consciously realizing that it's a home crowd. So I think that's usually the home crowd advantage is that like, you know, Sitnikova in Sochi a little bit, right? Because that crowd was behind her and it felt like that extra little bit that we all thought Yuna should have had, but maybe they thought with the energy in the crowd.
And the judging panel. How about the obsession of spots? Okay. Because you competed and like for many years, like you were all around a similar level, but not everybody was like at their best at the same time, like going into these competitions. So did you feel that people were scared that we were going to lose spots? Like, is that something that you feel? And then does that erode confidence as a skater?
It was a lot of, you know, whoever went to Worlds, and if you didn't get those 3 spots, then it was your fault. Because the person who could have gone to Worlds would have definitely gotten those spots if they had gone instead of you. You know, that was always the thinking behind it because everyone was sort of a similar level and it was how you skated mostly, not how good you were. But there was such an obsession, and there still is such an obsession with the spots, which makes sense because we have a deep field. So the more people you send, the more people get experience. But it's not like, you know, Michelle Kwan's era when we sent 3 people could end up on the podium.
Right.
See, I think with yours, it's weird because I think it hurt. I think a lot of you guys felt a lot of pressure, right? And I think now our expectations are so much lower that we don't even think that our women are good enough in the world to get those 3 spots. And I felt like the problem at that time was that everybody was like borderline. Like it was really like a question. Like there was the potential to get the spots, but there was also a lot of like strong skaters from Japan who like on a good day, you could beat them. On a bad day, you'd be behind them, right? Like there was just like so many variables, and it was about like clicking at the same time for those spots. And there are certain skaters who like Mirai would always peak later in the season. Like for Mirai, it would have been ideal if they could have gone like nationals and 4 continents to put in to determine a world team. Other skaters weren't, you know, and then for a lot of people, and how you do at when there are 2 spots, how you do on the Grand Prix becomes even more important because there's the pressure to pick the right skaters. So then you have to be more consistent earlier. And then that's something that like a lot of skaters don't understand, because if they're borderline at nationals, they'll usually,
It's
not.
hard to stay on top of your game for the whole season. Like if you look historically, most people weren't great at the Grand, or not like they weren't clean and perfect with all of their elements at their Grand Prix until people started taking drugs, and then they did 15 competitions a year and won every single one of them with a clean program. I mean, it's most people aren't consistent all the way through the season. And even if you look now, everyone is getting better throughout the season. So it's also hard to judge. I mean, it's great to be on top of your game at the beginning of the season, but it's hard to judge because someone will peak at Worlds and someone who maybe peaked at Skate America peaked too soon and then is over that by the time they get to Worlds. And so you can't really judge. I mean, you can judge at nationals because that's the way we've always done it. And so that's what's expected of us.
Can you
You
explain
do well at
peaking?
nationals, you make it.
Can you explain peaking? Because like sometimes, like one year I bombed a competition, and then for me that like motivates me. Sometimes my best semesters in college happened when like I thought I was prepared for the first exam, but I was not as prepared for that first macro econ exam as I thought. And then I went into like hyper focus mode and like I am gonna nail the rest of the semester. And then I wound up having like one of the best semesters, of my life. And it can happen like in competition too. Like you bomb a competition and then you are like, I am not gonna let that happen again. But when you say peaking, like how much of that is like that emotional intensity? Because you can't live in that emotional intensity, for that long.
It's also physical too, because you can't stay at this high level for the whole season. It's just not physically possible, especially when you're doing quads, especially for men. Like you can't train a quad that much all year or you'll just get hurt. So some of it is when you talk about peaking for Worlds and you want to be at the top of your game, you start out the season, you've got this hill that you have to climb because you start out here at the end of the season. You take some time off, you get new programs. You don't, there's no way you can skate a great program in 2 months that's going to be at the world level. And that's why, say, for example, Loena, her program looks so much better here than it did at her first, Skate America, Skate Canada, because she just has more time. You're doing your program probably, 30, 40 more times every single month. So it's just getting stronger and cleaner and sharper, and your jumps are getting bigger. They're getting more consistent. You're just getting more trained. And the amount of work it takes to, I don't know, to even be at Europeans, for example. We don't look at the people that don't make the free program most of the time, but even the amount of work it takes to get to that level is so much more than we realize. So to be able to peak at the top, especially when you're doing multiple quads in a free program like the men are, you just can't expect to be in like Adam, that he didn't skate clean like he did at French Nationals and the Grand Prix final, but he's probably coming down so that he can peak at Worlds, because Worlds is where he wants to win.
Yeah, but this
And
is the
Europeans
problem.
is getting through, right?
This is the problem 2 years in a row for him. Well, yes, he won here, and it's great that he won. But in terms of his potential, imagine, like, look at that quadlets at the beginning of the season. It was big, it was height, it was easy. And I don't know if he's getting in his head because of the pressure, because, like, everybody has an upper limit of what they think that they can do.
That's the other thing too, is that sometimes when you start out with a really good season, you start becoming tight and cautious because you're afraid to make mistakes. Whereas if you start the season on a lower plateau of your climb to the peak, you aren't afraid to make mistakes because you're trying to get to here. But if you start out here, you're not sure if you can get higher, so then you have to continually stay here. Then you get cautious, then you get things aren't quite as big because you don't want to make a mistake at the end of it. So maybe that's where Adam is. I mean, his jumps were certainly not great here, and that's okay if he's just coming down to get up for Worlds. That's the hope.
You would hope, because the sport needs him to do well at Worlds. Honestly, for the sport, the best thing that could happen would be like maybe Ilya winning, Yuma second, Adam a surprise third. And I'm not saying that that's what I think is like the best skating, but I'm just terms in like marketability. Ilya, like they would have a new champion. they'd have someone second who's on the rise from Japan, where there's been a steady stream of skating, so you need to keep that alive. And then Adam is like new up and comer from Europe. Then you get 3 continents of people that are being successful in the men's event. That would, like, from a marketing point, it would be like an ideal scenario. You could have Shoma go off with a great free skate. Maybe he could make a mistake in the short program, have a good cry, retire, bada bing, bada boom. Because, and I don't, like, I'm trying to take the emotion out of it and just be like, from a marketing point, like, they need to create a new star in Adam, right? And he is showing that he has a little bit of that moxie to be a star.
Let's talk about this for a second, though,
Yeah.
because we talked about this when we saw him at, was it called the Shanghai Trophy? It was a smaller B event that was happening in China in the fall. And he threw in that backflip out of nowhere. It's not a particularly elegant backflip. Threw it in, got the deduction. And I remember we were talking about it on the show the next day. Like, what was the point of that? And you were like, I wonder if he's trying to seem appealing to shows. To be like, I can do this great program, I can do this great jumps, and look, I'm also this fun guy. I thought it was a weird choice at the time, thought nothing of it. To do it again here was odd, I felt.
But do you remember when Ryan Bradley won nationals in 2011, and he was the last skater who's Nick Kissinger? I found out he won, got on the ice, did a backflip, and that was his way of celebrating personally.
It was amazing.
So I was just right, but like, it's fun because it somehow connects us more to him, because like, we want to celebrate and we want to see people celebrate when they do well, no matter if they skate that way every day. I still want to see them celebrate and be happy with, doing it when it counts. And maybe when Adam did it, or when he does it, like, maybe that's his way of celebrating personally.
Genius.
Maybe he's like, yes, I did it, I'm doing well, I'm doing a backflip.
I guess you could do it right after the program also and get your points back and not be doing blatantly illegal. And like,
I love that he did it in
you know why it's great that he did it? Because everybody is then talking about him on Twitter, and everybody's talking about it on Instagram, and whether they understand it or not, maybe he felt he was going to win. It also shows a lot of confidence, right? He's also not a Black woman, so they're not going to attack him in the same way, which is just like the reality of life that Saria was.
So did it used to be illegal and now it's just because the system is different, so now you can do an illegal element and just take the deduction?
Just get the deduction, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and before it was illegal, so you couldn't do it.
Yeah, and like, she did it, and then they, obviously tanked her, but it was obviously far worse. And she was judged far more harshly than, he was. And yes, there is that double standard. And yes, it had to do with race. And yes, I think with him, I think also society has changed to where we didn't know what a viral moment was, right? Like, that wasn't a term in 1998. Although what Surya did was also genius, because we're going to remember that she didn't give an F and like gave a backflip.
That program was tanking. That's
right, but it's what we all wanted, right? It's what you would all say, right? You'd be like, yes, that queen did a backflip at the Olympics because like she knew she wasn't going to win. Hanyu did the same thing. He knew he wasn't going to win, so he was like, I'm going to do the quad axel. Okay, they all knew at the cricket club he wasn't going to win. Okay, it's also why he didn't have a coach there. He was like making it so that he was like, I can go out and have a different experience, right? For Adam, he just made himself, they're gonna, in the world's preview article that comes out before he goes to the World Championships, they're gonna be like, this guy knew he was gonna win the Europeans, went out there and threw a backflip in. Everybody's gonna write and discuss him differently. You think quad lutz, backflip, right? You're starting to think, you're not thinking, guy who did a quad lutz and like stepped out of a quad toe that's so easy for him. You're thinking like, he's a badass, right? I'm going to want him in Art and Ice. I'm going to want him on any Ari Zakarian show. I'm going to want him as a show in Japan, right? Like, he's interesting to me now.
That's true. Which is great. I love that, because that gets us to watch skating more, and we need that.
Yeah, he just became that was the best thing. Like, at the ISU should have given him 5 extra points for doing it. Thank you. Okay, like,
it's always funny which sort of like moments from an event will sort of transcend the skating community and sort of branch out to the layman. And all these people that I know that do not follow skating were asking me about it. And I didn't even realize this backflip moment was sort of trending and going around.
They should have paid Syria Bonali $150,000 under the table for doing that backflip because people are talking about it still. Okay, that's like she deserves like a bonus in like an offshore trust. Okay, like that would be what we could do. Okay, no one can track it. Someone needs to wire her the cash. Okay, it's like when Yevgenia Medvedeva knew that she was going to win Russian nationals, so she did an extra toe loop on the end
triple.
Yes. To show that you can. Yes. Yes, queen. Right? Like, that's what we all want to see. It gave us something to talk about. Why is she taking the deduction? Because she knew she was that good. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why she did it. Yes.
Now, conversely, on the other end of the standings was another Frenchman who did not make the free skate. And it was, in fact, the three of us that sort of all met and thought, on the outside, it would seem that attending Europeans would be the worst idea. And even if Kevin wanted to, maybe he still shouldn't. And I'm sorry to say, obviously, that was correct in my view.
Yeah.
That was
so
tough to watch.
The problem, it's an interesting situation because nobody's honest about mental health. And nobody understands it, right? So people were still saying, he's just a drama queen, whatnot. Okay. Often when someone is dramatic, there's a reason underneath, right? There's,
Yeah.
There's,
Not because everything's going great. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The problem is that in that amount of time, when you're that low and that the program was that concerning, especially if it's messing up like your nervous system, like you're too anxious and you're too, you're not, he was having falls that were dangerous, right? Like, and just bizarre at the last competition, like that camel spin, right? There's no way that you can pull up when you're that low and now you're going to head in more pressure. And like, it wasn't like he was making mistakes. Like he was wiping out, are his feet connected to his body type situation, which is emotional, right? Like he's emotional. So, and everything comes out on the ice. So with someone like that, how they're feeling off the ice is going to show up on the ice. So if he is not feeling good as a person for whatever reason, it's going to show up. And this is where the federation is not logical because in their minds, of course they can be 1-2. They see the talent like we do. They also have eyes, right? But they're not being realistic about when he can be at his best or what's going to get him there. And that's really their responsibility. But he also boxed himself into a corner because people feel that pressure. You don't want to say no to your federation, right? But that's why like what Simone Biles did is so important and strong because she didn't let someone box her in and have this Kevin Aymoz moment because she knew in gymnastics, you could die. You could break your neck and die. And maybe you even could in skating with some of the quads and things like that, but they pulled out the difficulty, right? But he obviously had not prepared. There was not enough time for him to prepare enough to be ready psychologically as well as physically for this event. And I think it was obvious from the practice reports that it wasn't going well. He never jumped to music while he was there with his music on. And it was like they went out and threw spaghetti at the wall. I mean, and I think our concern when we had that conversation was what would a bad Europeans do to him, right? Well, now he's experiencing a real low because it's just like another disaster, right? And then you have to wonder, now it's going to be so much harder to ever get the judges on your side. And now everybody in skating is talking about you in terms that are horrifying. I mean, imagine being Kevin Aymoz and walking into a restaurant and you're another skater. They're all going to be like, oh my God, what was he like? What were he and Sylvia talking about? What was their mood like? Oh, like you become that like object that people are staring at. And as soon as he bombed, I was like, they should leave Europeans right now. But he stayed. And I just don't think that they are allowing it. And I think the thing is that Sylvia is so supportive of him as a coach, but sometimes you need that coach to pull you before the event to really say, no, you are not ready.
it's that adult in the room in this scenario. It's like one wants to be supportive. If you know, if he was saying he wanted to go, you want to be there for him. But also, someone I think could have intervened and been like, "I'm sorry, we've got to just say no on this one. Let's just wait." And I'm sure he wanted to do it, but I think he really wanted to be able to do well, which was clearly not in the cards here. And there's so much sort of fan shaming and all this sort of stuff. Even Chris, who's like a very positive commentator for the world feed, was like, this is disrespectful, sort of those omissions of the spins at the end, because it was like a total throwaway. However, I think, again, per our discussion before, this is like a vagus nerve response, and not everyone is wired to fight when it's all going wrong. It was clear he was in like a freeze mode and the body just left him.
Correct. But how come, okay, if he were injured and let's say that he had, I don't know, a stress fracture in his tibia, okay, and couldn't train and prepare properly. And if he went to the event and the stress fracture were really bad and they could see it, you could see him limping, they'd be like, oh yeah, we can pull you out. But when it's a mental health situation and you're not functioning well on the practice and like it's up and down and not consistent and you've had this situation, then people are like, well, you shouldn't have come. You shouldn't have come to Europeans. Now we can't send the alternate. So you have to go. You have to skate. But if that were a tibia and he were limping, everyone in that person would be like, oh my God, we got to pull him off. You can't skate like that. Rest. Be better, honey. Right? But we don't treat mental and physical health in the same way. And also, if he had a tibia injury, I think it would have been easier for the coach to pull him ahead of time. But what if a mental health is more serious, even sometimes, than the physical, because the mind controls the body, right? So it's just people not being realistic or educated in these federations. And I think if you see how Skate Canada operates, it's clear that these federations don't have, you know, the smartest people in the room running them. And the athlete wellness is the most important part, because if you don't have the athletes, you don't have anyone, right? So, but it's clear with Kevin that there's a problem in his team, right? There's a problem that there's no one in the room that can cut through the emotional stuff that's going on and be like really real. Would you send him to Worlds at this point? I wouldn't. And I wouldn't do it to be mean. I would do it to be like,
reset.
We want you to be good in 2026. We don't need you to be.
That's the problem though too, with like you know, I don't think if he continues to train the way he is, I don't think that or you know, if like it sounded that he's not training well, then I don't think he should go to Worlds, because I can't imagine how much more skating like this at Worlds would what that would do to him emotionally and mentally. But you also, like, as a federation, if you have to take the responsibility, if you're taking him out of Worlds, you have to do that hopefully in a way that still is supportive of him if you want him to continue. Because if they just pull him from Worlds and then don't do anything about it, then it's essentially their message to him is that we don't want you anymore. We don't believe in you. We don't think you can do it. We don't want you, which is, you know, not that a federation is responsible for an athlete's mental health, because they're a business and they want medals. But at the same time, they have a responsibility for the athlete's mental health, and that's something that they could, in this situation, make it or break it.
So I was talking
whether they choose to send them to Worlds or not, either way, they have to take the responsibility of their choice.
But I was talking to someone, a couple people that were there at the competition, and I was asking them about like the interactions with the federation, and unfortunately, it was very typical where his compatriot does well, he does badly, and the federation just goes to the person that did well.
Well, I mean, that's every federation. Sorry, it is not what we want them to be like, but that's what they are like, because they don't know how to act. I think they don't know how to help you. They want to have nothing to do with you, and they want to pretend that they didn't support you. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, but I don't think that there's there's a history of any federation being supportive in any of those situations.
Mm.
And I think
because they don't know how to do it.
They don't. And I also think it goes, it's like top down. And I want to talk to Phil Hirsch about this because I think he'd be brilliant. And this is where Russia is different. Not that they're more supportive, but the problem is that in America, we live in a democracy. We also live in a capitalist society, right? Are each of the federations essentially competing for for a portion of the pie, right? Like there's so much funding that the USOPC has, and are the federations essentially competing against each other? So one of the best arguments that John Manley did in the case against Nasser is he had every single athlete go into the public and say the same thing. How many times did we hear Ali Raisman say medals and money, medals and money? That's all the federation cares about, medals and money. That's true, because guess how the federation gets funding from the USOPC? Medals, right? Guess how they get sponsors? Medals, right? So the whole funding structure actually can breed that toxicity, because they're not like dividing an equal sense of the pie and be like, we're here to empower our athletes and raise champions. They're like, no, if you have champions, we'll throw more money at you so that you can become bigger, but you got to figure out on your own so you get to that point. Yeah. And that's the reality of how that works. So there's a reason why they would ignore someone, and it goes to how they're funded, and then like that's a cultural thing that starts to happen.
Well, and it's fascinating because at this Europeans in particular, we see sort of what have been considered maybe those B-list federations really fighting aggressively to be more present. I think that was clear with like the Italian Federation is clearly getting their ducks in a row, and it's clear the Georgian Federation is coming out like guns blazing to become a more relevant federation in the scene. And it was interesting at this Europeans in particular to see all these countries, even France, like with the dance event and some of their women and things, they were proving to have more depth than I realized. And I would imagine this is a huge championships for them to sort of pump up themselves. And I just wonder, what is the end goal? Like, is the goal like for Georgia now to like interest their population in the sport more as fans, to get more athletes from the country involved, or is it just to snag a team medal? I don't understand what it is, but these federations are in like overdrive right now, it would seem.
Well, if you do get that team medal, you may get funding for the next 4 years in some of these countries, and each country is different, but that's what a medal could mean, right? So if Canada falls off the medal podium, do they get less money from the Canadian Olympic Committee? And then that makes it even smaller, and then they can't even have like, then they're in some like arena, there's no lighting, everything is just horrible. So, and it's like, it makes it worse and worse and worse and worse, and then you get into a hole that you can't climb out of. And I think it's a difficult situation. And like the way that even like the world spots, right? Like the world spots mean it's harder for someone to get a medal. If it's harder for them to get a medal, then how are they going to get it? And like it works the same way with athlete funding, right? Like the better you do, the more money they throw at you. But when you're struggling, then you're really struggling, because they're not going to throw more sponsorship money at you then. Unless you're someone that they really care about and they will call a private independent sponsor, and then they will help foot the bill. But it's not a one size fits all, and that's like stuff that nobody talks about in skating. So, and then you see people lose money, like, with that, and it's very depressing. And I think it's why athletes have to take, they have to have big social media accounts so that they can take the power back from the federation into their own hands and have some of their own nest egg and following to build from. And then if they can have their own sponsorship deals, they're less reliant on the federation. So it's like when you do start to become successful, you do have to build your own brand, because it's going to give you security later on. It can help you through a bad year.
And then, I mean, my thoughts turn to like Selevko in the men's event, which I can't imagine the Estonian Federation is one of great power. But like suddenly this was someone I kind of knew existed in the past, but sort of emerged as a fan favorite somewhere out of this weekend, I think. And I think if he were to hop on social media now and really sort of do that, I think there's a big fan base waiting for him, which could also supplement not being from a powerful federation also. I mean, he had like, it was ridiculous how much people were responding to him this weekend.
I mean,
he had that like almost home crowd energy in such an old school way. Like his skating, it seems to me like old school Russian, bit of Trifon Zivanovic hunchback posture, but like
Zivanovic,
right?
Listen, you just like threw us like, yes, Trifon in the orange shirt at US Nationals. Yes, okay, yeah.
But like I don't know, his jumps are beautiful. Hey, gorgeous. His skating.
Listen,
his upper body and his skating could use some work. His feet are fine across the ice. Like he can skate, he just not maybe project. But there was something about his
what in
his
the
excitement
that
was
that?
Old school.
You just said A. You just threw some Canadian like.
I'm using the A because it sort of forces.
You are not actually Canadian. You are as Canadian as Caitlin Weaver, Alyssa. Okay, whatever.
But it was his landing positions that were absolutely stunning, I thought.
The way he exited with his jumps with flow, like that, and he didn't like when he jumped. There was no pre-rotation. There was like old school jumps, old school performative quality, which I was thinking like when I was watching him and watching Europeans, like why has the new system killed skating?
Mm-hmm.
Like if people have been talking about that for decades, since well, not decades, but you know what I mean. Decades since we started the new system, but now I feel like watching skating now doesn't excite me.
Right.
And I was trying to figure out why. And there are certain people that I love to watch skate for different reasons, but there's no personality, and I think that's why we have not as much of a following, because it's nice. I think as a skater, it's nice to have the new system because you see exactly where you can gain more points. It's like, in a way, it's more in your control. If I do this, I get a level 4. If I do this well, I get a level 4 with positive GA. If I do this jump instead of this jump, I get more points. Like it just makes sense as a skater. It's approachable and it's attainable, and it's in your control for the most part. Whereas 5'4", 5'3", 4'9", 5'9", is not so much in your control because it's not as easy to see. But we're missing personalities, or is there just so much to watch and there's so many more skaters that we don't get to know any of them before they're gone? Like, what is it that we're missing that we don't see the personalities? And I feel like with Alexander Slefko, by the way, his brother didn't do so well at this competition, did he?
No, didn't make the final. Yeah,
but he had a quality that was like,
I had a philosophical discussion with my friend yesterday about this. What we thought with the skating. The first thing I think in the current system, listen, they're never going to go back to a 6-0, right? So we're going to
of course, and they can't, but like the freedom of that system.
Yes. So I first was like in this mental thing over the last week because Bethany Frankel was watching Ice Castles on TCM like a week ago, right? But she was taking a video of herself watching like the ending scene of the skater, and there was just like this glide, right? Like she just glided and she did 3 turns and it was gorgeous. And I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. But that's not how people skate anymore, right? And there used to be this transference that felt like you were the skater on the lake. And unfortunately, what happened when they moved to the points is that people started thinking mathematically instead of having that combination of right and left brain while they were skating. So when you watch, how many times do you watch a skater actually go in and out in their brain of performance before the top where you can see them thinking, right? And
that's why everyone puts their stuff sequence at the end so they can perform it. And then it looks like they have a program. And then you watch Kevin, right? And then you watch Kevin Aymoz when he starts his program, he's already performing. Like that's why we love him so much, because he's.
And that's why it's harder. It's harder
it's so much harder to do that. But so many people do the like, okay, here's the jump, here's some performance, here's the jump.
And people don't understand
you kind of have to.
the fans
Unless
don't
you're really,
understand
really
it.
good.
The fans are like, well, why is he not doing the quads? And you're like, because he's trying to be a total package skater, right? And it's much harder. Like, this is a sport. Yeah, it always has been a sport. And nobody's saying to get rid of the jumps. Everyone is saying that actually the jumps are great and you need the skating too. I also think we have got to just change the spins to make it
Oh,
so that
Yeah.
I think the
We missed
spin,
the false spins. Yeah.
because
right,
who,
but I
who
think
was
a
it,
spin-
Mateo? Or like the end of his program, he had to do the or Dennis, I can't remember who it was, had a brilliant program, and then they had to end with that sit spin in the tuck behind. And I was just like, you know what? I wish at this moment that that spin didn't exist whatsoever. Because what an awful way to end a great
so
program.
I wish that we would see features because somebody is trying to get points from mastery and not putting like the cart before the horse. So in my opinion, if you have a short program, what I would do, and you have to make the programs different, right? But one thing that I would do is I would have, because like notice in ice dance, they have more virtuosity. Gymnastics used to have this term risk, originality, virtuosity, and it made it
I like that.
brilliant, right? It's called ROV. And I think skating misses the ROV with the IJS because everybody's just doing the same combinations, right? It's like how
It's so
everybody
bad.
in gymnastics is doing the wolf turn, right? But I think what they could do is, let's say that you have a layback element and it has a relatively low base value, but the GOE became substantially more from like a +1 to a +5, right? So if Alyssa Cisney is going to give me a gorgeous layback that's going to look,
Which is worth nothing because it's a base value.
right, which shouldn't be. So we're going to set it that it
Shouldn't
has
be.
right. It's going to be like an ice dance element where there's a set that, those choreographic elements are worth a ton, but
Yeah.
it's moved ice dance forward because it improved the creativity. Right. So what we need to do is you need to have that in skating, make the spins because the spins are virtuous. Okay. How many skaters are you going to see try to do the unicamel with a bent leg like this and it's ugly and they're straining? And if the skater is straining, the audience doesn't feel relaxed. I want to feel relaxed and be like, oh my God, that was so beautiful. I want to do that. Yes. Right. None of that is happening. Right. So I want to see Alyssa Cisney and Angela Nikodinov and Sarah Hughes and Sasha Cohen just give me a great layback, make it fast, make it beautiful, make it centered. I'll give them all the points, like making it rain with the GOE, okay? And then make that worth something, okay? That way, someone who's great at spinning can earn points like someone who's great at jumping, right? That way, it's still a freaking sport, right? But you're getting points rather than making it like everybody's going to have to do these 4 contortions. Well, Loena Hendrickx's basic layback position is freaking hideous, right? The leg is bad, the back is bad, but her Bielman is gorgeous.
Yes.
So let us do a Bielman and don't make us see that layback because it looks awful, okay?
And it's probably hurting her back when she does it like that.
Yeah.
Which then is going to make her not be able to jump because she's hurt her back, and then we've lost her, you know,
if it
her
looks like
specialness.
work, nobody wants to see it, right? But what if you had something and like, Lucinda Rue is coming out, right? And you also, the judges have to be honest with the judging, right? Because if you have Lucinda Rue come out, and then she's going to like change position and each one is going to be beautiful and develop, she should get the maximum points, right? But if someone gives you like, Alyssa gets a +5, maybe Ashley Wagner gets a +3, but maybe there's enough of a differentiation in the points that's Alyssa's getting 5 extra points for her spin because she freaking deserved it, right? Whereas someone who's an average spinner is getting a +2 and they're not getting those points. And then I think that they could do it like in the short program. Why are we seeing the same spins as the free? Like, what if we go back to like a camel change camel? They made the men do that in 92. You saw the most beautiful verge because when everybody has to do the same element, you start to see, well, I'm going to give you line and I'm going to give you this and I'm going to try to extend. Nobody does that now. They're like, okay, I have to hit the contortions. I'm going to spend more time on my jumps, right? You have to make it so that people are trying to bring back the ROV.
Well, and same with the freedom in the step sequences, again, because we know some of these skaters could really deliver even more with them if there weren't so many silly requirements that ultimately the music 9 times out of 10. And I think it's a thankless job because I think these are very difficult step sequences, but with very little audience reward because it looks labored and it looks like you're really working and having to check these boxes instead of being inspired and free by whatever the music or the emotion of the program at that time needs.
Like, I always think it's funny when
up and down.
if you watch Yuka Sato's step sequence from 1994, under the rules, it would get like no points today. But you can't tell me that.
Yeah, but the object of step sequences in that area was how fast can you get from this end of the rink to the other end of the rink. That was what gave you, you know, a step sequence. It was like the speed of it. So I remembered that. Like that was the object. And then we got the new system. It was like, oh, you have to have a stop in the footwork. And it was a big thing to like stop the footwork and then start again because we were so used to doing as fast as you can across the ice. But like, you know, you watch Yuka or anyone else do a step sequence like that and you're like, it's fun. And also it's not 30 seconds of the program that I want to forward through.
Right.
You know, so few, and there are a few step sequences out there that are spectacular and brilliant to the music that you want to watch, but most of them, like, I don't want to see another cluster.
And do you realize the music has gotten worse for skating since the IJS because you can't actually skate to big enthralling music anymore. You need music that's going to like lull out so that you can do those spins and that step sequence because the spins don't match the music. You just need to kill time.
Yeah, that's true. What if you got points for your spins matching the music? That would be interesting. Hey, because people would have to like think about where they put the spin in the program and not just like, let's put 2 where we're trying to rest and 1 at the end. And it's
remember
ugly.
like Jeremy talking about that in some of the earlier programs. It was like the music was going and he was inspired to keep spinning, but he had to remember he had to stop, even though it didn't make any sense to stop because he had to do this other thing. And I was like, that's exactly the mentality. I think that's the problem. Is what you want to do is actually what you can't do. You're required to do something else.
By the way, we need Netflix to fly to that rink in San Francisco where Paulina Edmonds is living her best life, you know, when she's telling us how to have beautiful line. Because like she, Jeremy, and Brian Boitano are just like all loving each other and just being like, you're so great. No, you're so great. You're great too. And then they film it for each other in like that gorgeous setting with that glass and like that adult skater Jean Tang is like flying Jeremy to like the ISU adult worlds, like in, you know, Oberstdorf to like live her best life. And like Jeremy gets to go like on a paid vacation to Germany. Like they are just living. He recreated his program.
You know what's fun is that like skating with someone who's in your place in life, as to say like, they're obviously retired, they're doing shows, they're probably doing choreography, doing whatever else. But to skate with someone, they're literally skating for fun. And there's nothing better than skating for fun. I did it the other day because I don't have any shows until next month. So I just went to the rink and I just skated for fun. Like I don't have to train a program. I'm not trying to get ready for something. I was like, I have time and I'm just going to literally skate for fun. There's nothing better. And we don't get that, but when you have someone else to do it with, it's even more fun because you're motivated to come into the rink. You're motivated to like, I don't know, come up with a new exercise that you just like. I was doing the other day, I came up with exercises that you keep both feet on the ice the whole time. And you know, different like things that you would never
I love this for you. Like, I love this that like you're such a nerd about skating that you just like married Kurt Browning and the two of you just like chop down trees and talk about like going and skating on like across the rink like that. Like, yes, this is fab. I love this for you. Okay. You know what's happening for me with my nerdy self? I'm going to Lake Placid and I love this because of Safe Sport, they had to close the boarding houses, right? Which killed skating in Lake Placid. So they sold all those boarding houses. But which stinks for them. But for me right now, there's no one there. So I get like private ice. And it's not because I'm paying a lot of money. It's because there are like 2 freaking skaters. So it's like me and the 2 girls that were doing like the Sia Christmas number together. Like great. Okay. And then there's like a guy. It's like there's like one random guy. He just puts on his playlist and he stands there and goes around in a circle, like playing air guitar for hours a day. And like no one knows what's going on. What?
That's amazing. No, I love it. I love that that's what he
what he's doing. he's living his best life, and I'm just like skating around him. But you know, that's all there is there. So like
Yeah.
it's just nothing better than having the rink to yourself.
It's
Like,
true, actually, especially if you're putting in music that you love and just moving to it.
and the old rink on the top on the upstairs in Lake Placid
Mhm.
has like all of the sun that comes in, and it has that dome, so it's like bright and like nice natural lighting. It's not like the dark oppressive lighting like in the 80 rink. Like it's just living. Like,
That's awesome.
yes. So Jonathan, where it's like having good acoustics. Okay, where's your favorite acoustics to like sing?
My
Like,
house. It makes such a difference. And like when you get into like a big hall and you're by yourself, and again, you're kind of just having fun, there is something so liberating about it. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
there's nothing worse than skating with people right before their competition when like you want to have fun and you just feel that energy, right? Like,
And there's nothing worse than being that person getting ready for competition, skating with people who are fooling around.
so this morning I was skating with two dancers. Okay.
It's both sides. Like you just can't
Yes.
do it. You
Yeah.
So
can't
I
do
was
it. You can't do
skating
it
this
for either
morning.
parts.
Skating this morning trying to do edge, edge stuff. There's the junior team that's going to nationals, and you can just like feel the focus, the nerves, and the intensity because it's like their first time. And junior nationals and ice dance is really bizarre because the teams like hang out there. That's where like you
Yeah, they
mature.
can't quite get to senior, right?
Yeah, and they stay there for like 5, 6 years nowadays. And then so it's like weird your first year, you're like really gonna be near the bottom, which is like a weird thing to psychologically build. And like you could see, like, oh my God, you were so much more confident last year in novice when you were near the top. And you wonder, like, should you have stayed in novice another year to like win and then move to junior, right? Because you would be so much more confident now rather than junior being a little bit of a reach and then you're put at the bottom, right? Like, does that just like ruin your momentum and your confidence? Because now you're like, oh my God, I'm such a bad skater. Nobody likes me. I'm not
You
good
know
at
who
this.
I'm thinking about that with is my Czech team, the junior dance champions from last year at Worlds. Like they were out of top 10 here. And I think they are incredibly strong. I think they are incredibly fast. They're exciting. I know that there are things that they can improve. But again, both Czech teams are very exciting to me for like their incredible presence and speed. But I would imagine it's really hard. You're entering this season as junior world champions, and now you are 11th place at Europeans, and you did your job. But the judges are sort of telling you, like, we're not here to make this transition easy for you, is what it seems on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
But it was tough. Like they did a Swan Lake that was like, is it the most
but at the
fit for them?
same time, when you're seems like lately junior world champions in singles seem to come and they win everything, and then you don't get a chance to mature out of the spotlight. And so maybe in a way they won junior, they're great, they're moving up to senior, they know they're not going to be at the top, but that gives them a chance to become who they're going to become, as opposed to being a star right away and then having to, mature in with all of the pressure on you. So maybe it's not a bad thing. It's just it is a different feeling going in for sure when you're like, I'm going to be 10th, not first.
Right.
But still, maybe it's like a little bit out of the pressure.
I want to ask you, Alyssa, when did you first compete internationally? Because now there's like a lot of hoopla about getting like these advanced novice competitions, and you could be advanced novice and be very far from getting a junior Grand Prix. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad skater, like, but there's a jump that happens. And in dance,
right? My first one was Triglav Trophy when I was 13. And they actually did send they sent two novice, because in the spring competitions they would send like two novice here and two novice there, so that like 4 novices got to compete. But I was junior and was supposed to do junior Grand Prix that year, but it was the year of 9/11, so I had two. My sister had two. None of us went because US Figure Skating said no, you don't fly. It was literally the week that 9/11 happened. That was the first junior Grand Prix, so I didn't get to do junior Grand Prix. But the junior spring competitions were like, if you medaled at junior, you got to go to these, because they couldn't send you to junior worlds because they were sending seniors to junior worlds. So they put you out and then they would give you junior Grand Prix. So I never got to do the whole novice thing.
And for the kids who are too young here, for the people that didn't like live through 9/11, just to like give context, which seems like really like listen, an average skater like who'd be watching this who didn't live through it. After 9/11, the immediate thing was like, oh my God, don't go to the mall. Oh my God, are they going to bomb it?
But also don't fly, right? And
Don't fly.
we weren't allowed to fly because the first Junior Grand Prix was happening. The second one was a Tuesday that it happened. It was a Tuesday that happened.
Yes.
The second one was in the US. It was in Phoenix, I believe, because my sister was supposed to go to that one, and they decided to cancel the entire competition because people didn't want to fly to the US because you don't know if it's safe. Plus, flights were being, canceled all over the place. And then after that, they decided that they would give the senior competitors the option to go if they wanted. But the junior, they just said, like, we can't take your lives into our hands. You're too young. So they just didn't let any of us go.
Were those the only internationals that your sister would have ever gotten?
They promised everyone that had a Junior Grand Prix that they canceled that year they would give them something the following year. I don't know if everyone also competed that season. So my sister got to do Vienna Cup, which was not called Vienna Cup. I can't remember what it was called. Carl Schiffer Memorial. So she got to do that one. But that was, she lost a whole year of being able to do internationals that she never got back. Never got to do Junior Grand Prix, in fact, because of that.
That stinks. That's
it just does a little bit, like when you had to and you were going to compete and you're at your prime.
But then on the other hand, she got to go to Vienna. Like, I would love.
This is true.
Right? Could you imagine?
And she has a beautiful trophy that's like glass rose and it's rainbow colored and it's gorgeous.
Like some of these Junior Grand Prix, it's like, do you want to go to Estonia? No, I want to go to Vienna. Okay, like that is where I want to go.
That's true. I'm totally off the subject, but back to dance at Europeans. Carol Lane, Suisse, and Shane Fierce are representing Ireland. I didn't know
I
that.
had no idea
and also,
until I saw them in that warm-up. Yeah.
I watched them and they're beautiful skaters. I don't know why they're so low. Like I just don't understand.
Ireland, Alyssa.
Well, I wondered
Ireland,
about that. But
and they're not
they're
from
so
Montreal.
Beautiful to watch.
It's if you are
Anyways,
not.
I didn't.
If you're not in Montreal, it's like you're not at the right record label, right? It's like you're at the indie label.
They're not bad skaters.
No,
right.
They're good skaters. They have a great free dance. I didn't watch a short dance. They have a great free dance. They're great skaters. They're beautiful to watch. Why are they so low?
Because they're from Ireland and they're not in Montreal where all of the other countries could help them together. That's why Alison Reed won a medal over the Finnish team. Like, let's cut the shit. They won it because they were Lithuanian. They knew Worlds were going to be in Lithuania, and Montreal can work behind the scenes and be like, Worlds going to be at home. Let's support the team this year, right? Everybody got behind them all year. It started last year that they were, remember when Renee Roca was like, what was the theme there? I didn't know the theme, right?
Yeah, and again, I don't, obviously Alison Reed is lovely, but I don't respond to their material or their skating as much as either the Finnish or the two French teams or the two Czech teams. They just interest me a bit more.
But that's why you go to Montreal. You know the game you're playing, and you also know the money you have to spend for the game you're playing. So
it's interesting because who wasn't playing the game very well here, and I was sort of glad to see it, was that Diana and Gleb were sort of where they should have been.
Well, that Swan Lake.
Oh, I went and watched Elena and Nikita's Swan Lake after that because I
needed that jolt of
energy.
Energy.
Yes, thank you. There we go.
Why is Elena Novak, why is Elena choreographing for the teams at WISA? Like, she shouldn't be, and then they look like village skaters. And they're just not, it's just not a good program. And they just don't have the ballet training. And if you don't have the ballet lines, if you're Diana Davis and you have a flexed foot and a leg that doesn't extend, why are you going to, like, this whole Zagitova bullshit? Like, you don't have your mother putting you in senior ladies at the Olympics where they've rigged every judge, right? So it doesn't matter what you're doing. You're competing in ice dance for a fake country, right? Because it's not your country of origin, right? Nobody believes you're Georgian. Nobody believes that you should even be there. And you're doing Swan Lake with a bent, flexed foot, bent free leg, no expression. You're just inviting people to think that you're bad.
It wasn't a good choice. It was not because there's also.
Oh, sorry, Alyssa, I didn't mean to interrupt. Okay. They were more convincing in the rhythm dance because they were able to hide behind more. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to say something offensive to you. You shouldn't be Carmen.
Yeah, right?
Okay. You shouldn't be Carmen.
However, Tessa should be Carmen.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
You just have to know what you can do. Diana Davis also shouldn't be Carmen and shouldn't be Swan Lake. like just.
And you have so much to compare with that Swan Lake. It's not like, you know, she did Capelia or something where very few people, maybe Megan Wing and Aaron Lowe, I remember they did Capelia, but like you can do Capelia because you're not being compared, whereas they're being compared to the Olympic bronze medal dance team that did Swan Lake with those, you know, exact cuts in that almost costume.
By the way,
Tutu.
Megan Wing and Aaron Lowe, they told a friend of mine that after the stuff broke with Sorensen, they talked to all of their male skaters about situations to not get in. And I was like, wow, someone did the right thing in skating to like sit people down and have the hard discussions about this. Like,
That's good.
someone's having like maturity, and like that's good. Like
That's
props for them.
amazing.
You know, yeah, I think you have to know what vehicle to pick. Listen, Fear and Gibson should never do something classical because
No.
they don't have the lines for it.
I'm worried about them, not this year because they've got the Rocky piece, but I'm worried because they're now near the top
Mhm.
and fighting for maybe a world medal in their future. I'm afraid that they're going to be normal, or they're going to try to follow the trends instead of being unique, which is what makes us love or hate them, but talk about them and follow them. You know what I
You
mean?
know what's interesting, Alyssa? I think they're never going to go back to anything but these sorts of character-driven programs.
I hope not, because like for example, the French team, Lopereva and Brissot, like they're trying to be Gabby and Guillaume, and they shouldn't be. They should be quirky, and she should be the main, you know, femme fatale character. Like they're so good, but I hate that they're doing Gabby and Guillaume because they're not Gabby and Guillaume. But what they could offer us is something that's so different that's not out there, and
More
that's what
shown in the rhythm dance, because in the rhythm dance, take that quirky move and it really works for them.
I like that.
Also,
and I like Lila and Lewis. I like that they're doing that, but I'm really worried that they're going to be like, oh, we want to be on the podium, we want to win, so we have to do what we're supposed to do.
But that's it. Being unique has gotten them, and that was the mistake that Hubble and Donahue made. For as soon as they got to the top, they went right.
And everybody does that because why? Do you have to? Maybe you have to. I don't know.
Or they think they have to, because I think actually had they not, then they actually would have been on the tippy top more than they realized.
The British
That's true.
The British
They
can't be classical because they have not figured out how to work with off-ice people to fix her free leg and get her on deeper edges, and they cannot do classical because they don't have classical line because she doesn't have it.
What so they could do is the Bob Fosse, where he couldn't, you know, like he became who he was because of his inability to be a classical, you know, classical position. Like, look at what he made of himself.
This is why you should be in our book club, because we're gonna read about Bob Fosse. So this is like what kind of a thing we need to talk about. Like we're talking about winners, okay? We're talking about visionaries.
Yeah, finding.
Also,
avenue.
I ordered the book on Amazon, but it's not supposed to come till the 22nd or something.
That's
what I ended up downloading it, like doing like the e-reader on.
I can't find it in my library.
Audible person. You like.
I do some audiobooks, but I just didn't. I don't like the app Audible.
You could be listening to it with your earbuds as you're chopping down the trees. I mean, come on.
Do that. I listen to like from my library though. So okay, fine, I'll get it.
You can get it Audible. You're having a nature bath, right? You're they call it like when you're walking, like you're having a nature bath.
I was like, what? Nature. Speaking of nature, I'm really sorry to do this. I have to be back. I'm going to come back.
We'll just keep talking because you know what, Alyssa? That Lopereva, you know, why are you having fire engine red hair with like light blue? They don't even go together. When your hair doesn't match the costume.
But like, I could see her being Amelie. I could be like, see them doing a Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which I know is very generic, but like anything, because there's like that potential, because I think she has such a personality too. I don't know them.
They look like they're giving you French quirky, and then they're giving you this like lyrical Gabby Guillaume that doesn't match. You ever see the movie L'Auberge Espagnole? Like they kind of look like people, like the quirky college-aged people. Like they.
Yeah, I love it. I love the look, and I want them to finish it by doing a program to it.
Yeah, they're not Gabby Guillaume. How much do you think the ISU should pay Papadakis and Cizeron under the table to come back? Like, right, like you think $100,000, $200,000, like in that offshore bank account? Like, how much does this?
I'll donate to it.
I like the painting behind you.
Jonathan's going to donate, right? Jonathan, how much money should they be paying these people to come back under the table?
Whatever they need.
Right? This is
Whatever
the
they
thing. It's like I got into this debate with Sandra Bessick, and she was like, no, everybody should have the same opportunity. I was like, right. And like that's great in reality, but skating has no stars right now. So you have to
They were here. They were here skating in the exhibition, and there was something in the interview. I did not watch the Kiss and Cry interview they did with them, but they were like making jokes about coming back or not coming back.
Yeah, everybody is so open about the fact that they are obviously coming back because they got into ridiculously good shape. Like,
I want to see that. Oh my goodness.
Come
I'm
on.
excited for this now. I just
Did you
hope they
not-
bring something different. I hope that they change the Gabby and Guillaume era to something else, to another
Yeah.
Gabby and Guillaume. You know what I mean? Like kind of like when Scott and Tessa came back and they were way better.
Yeah.
Mm.
But they need to come back because if you notice, he's starting to like sell products and like his oils or whatever he was doing. I don't know. Like he's always like look like has modeling photos, right? And he's selling stuff. But Tessa started to get that too. And they came back. It was partially a commercial venture because they knew that the more you're on TV, the more people see you, the bigger your profile comes. Like they need to build their followers. And that's why they need to be more engaging. Their whole aloof, we don't watch skating, we don't approve of anyone else. Like it doesn't allow people to connect with them. Like look at their followers versus Tessa Virtue's followers, right? And be like, if you want to make money for your whole career, you're gonna have to be a little bit more relatable. The whole arrogant French thing is like not really working for you because we like you, but we don't like really know you. We could like you so much more. Like if Guillaume was relatable to people, like actually like didn't just
But Gabby is so relatable.
She's
Gabby
very
is so-
personable. I
She's so
agree.
funny.
I know, but when he
and
gives
dry,
off
and I
the
love it.
when Guillaume is there and love his skating, but he's like, yes, I didn't really miss it. I don't know. Like, you're just not like ringing the people.
Comparing yourself to the public the same way that she can.
Yeah,
But I feel like all of the champions of the past decade or more, it's like as soon as they become the champions, it's like uncool for them to like skating.
whatever. Kurt Browning is like out there liking
But
skating. Like
that's
Kurt
the
Browning
thing,
is
it's
like
like-
95 years old, doing all of the stuff. He's still probably hugging. How many people want to take pictures with Kurt Browning? Like when he's, I don't know, like at the gas station. I could just picture some old
But it's not like in Canada, they're very respectful. And he gets recognized everywhere we go. But we have great conversations with these people. Like they're normal people and they're like, thank you for all the
Great.
entertainment
And if
you
you ask
brought us
Kurt
over the
Browning,
years.
Kurt Browning, what skater did you admire growing up? Do you think he'd give an answer?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. We asked Gabby and Guillaume that question. Guillaume's like, I never watched skating. I was like, shut up. You seem like an asshole right now. I wanted to say it mid-interview. And Jonathan was like sitting there being like, yes, I admire that.
Yeah,
So
well, but to me also, like, it was interesting because something that they have provided, they don't strike me as fans of skating like other skaters are. And it's sort of why there are so many outside influences in their material that don't just come recycled from the skating, wheelhouse in a way. So to me, I don't know, when they were saying that, I was like, I believe you because I think much of your inspiration isn't coming from skating itself. You're using outside sources and bringing it into the skating.
they didn't say that. They made themselves seem like self-involved assholes.
I was
when
kind of
they said
glib
that.
on it for outside perspective, but I know what you mean.
They seemed like a self-involved, arrogant asshole when they gave that answer. Instead of being like, even if you lie, okay, and be like, oh my God, I looked up to this person so much. That's relatable because everybody was a kid who started in skating, who like watched someone on TV and wanted to like learn everything about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then it's like,
we've talked about this on other shows. Like, for instance, in opera, when I'm teaching, one of the first things I want the students to ask me and I ask the students is, who are your favorite singers and which singers do you not respond to? Because it's immediately sort of like giving you their perspective. If someone's going to tell you, my favorite skater of all time was Midori Ito, and the next person goes, my favorite skater of all time was Sasha Cohen, you know that you are dealing with two very different perspectives.
right. And what if that student says, I don't know, I don't listen to other singers.
And they do say that sometimes, and I just
Especially
respond,
now.
that's a choice.
When I teach skaters, they don't know who just won the Olympics.
Yeah.
And this was the year of the Olympics when I mentioned this, which is a problem because we have access to this so much now, right?
Okay.
Who
got you into skating? Like, what skater got you into it?
So for me, it wasn't a skater. Like I was 18 months old when I started skating, and it was something to do in the winter time. Like we lived in a small town, but it was a university town. So there were a lot of things open to the community because of the university, including the rink, swimming lessons, gymnastic lessons, like ballet lessons. We took all of these things because my mom put us in sports to stay active so that we wouldn't tear the house apart, especially in the winter when we couldn't get outside and play. So I skated, but also like I'm from the same rink as Scott Hamilton. So of course, who do you think I looked up to the most as a kid? Like, but also he was funny and he was fun and he made skating approachable and he made you laugh. And it wasn't like, you know, snobbish and like surreal in a way. It was like it was just like it was right there. And I met him when I was 4 because he came to our rink to skate, but he did our show when I was 5. So I did an ice show and I watched Scott Hamilton skate. So it's pretty obvious, like when I was starting skating, that it was fun for me. And he made, at the top level, he made it fun. So I liked skating.
Yeah.
And later on, of course, like I became more like artistically involved and wanted to, you know, do more of that. But that was my early influence.
I knew every move to Christy Yamaguchi's Malagueña. And I mean, I practiced the hand behind here. Okay, like
yeah, okay.
I would do it in front of the TV set, like her and Sandra working on it, like doing it. I tried to do the illusion, probably hit my coffee table, like whole program. I could walk you through that Olympic program to Christy. I could tell you how she puts her hip out after the last Lutz. Like just everything about that program, I could tell you. Like, but that's relatable. And you have to let the people know that you're human. Because and I'm not calling them arrogant. I'm saying that answer sounded arrogant, right? Because people are going to look up to them, right? Think about all of the people that in turn look up to Gabby and Guillaume the same way they looked up to someone else. And they're not allowing people to connect with them in that way when they say that answer. It's just not relatable. Who was the first person in skating that got you into it, Jonathan, and who got you into music?
Oh my gosh. Well, like for skating, it was that early 90s era. It was that combination of Christy, Nancy, Tanya. Like that, it totally pulled me in because again, it was 3 people that were doing well, but 3 totally different people. So it was also that like variety that sort of like brought me in right away. But I get this concept, same way with the music. I found the music, and then as a result of that, started to explore musicians. And again, it's just sort of that curiosity that I find is missing in some people.
Who did young gay Jonathan start emulating? Like, who was young gay Jonathan, like, secretly being, like, learning every single person about? Like,
I was already curating. I was, like, sort of shopping the finest musicians, and I was like, I like this one for this, I'm taking that. I like this one for this, I'm going to take that, and I'm going to put together me, which is all of my favorite parts of my favorite musicians.
Could you ever go to the library, look in the card catalog, and like read that book about Christy Yamaguchi where they're telling you about like her foot problem as a kid? And I was like, I had a foot problem as a kid. I wore a brown bar like between my feet.
Our age group, you used to go to the library and you would like get those like micro feeds of like the old like magazine things. So I would literally just type a search word for like figure skating and they would be bringing me like People magazine article that was this long that I was watching on a micro feed from 1987 about Debbie Thomas or something like that. And it was super fun to explore. And I'm just fascinated now that we have so much access to things. Like if we had YouTube when I was first discovering skating and first discovering music and all these sorts of things, it would have been so much easier instead of me spending $8 million at Tower Records exploring recordings on the floor, you know, like it's so easy now. And yet even with all of that access and information, it's fascinating how many people don't know previously.
Like for me, we didn't have a TV and we rented a TV for the 94 Olympics. We rented a TV. The fact that that's...
You grew up on the prairie.
I grew up under a rock.
It really sounds like Little House, like Laura Ingalls, like, you know, basically living in your house.
Anyway, we rented a TV for the 94 Olympics. And I recall clearly that, like, I remember watching Natalie Krieg.
Yes.
From Switzerland. And she did like the A-frame spin. She did Bielman, obviously. She did
the arms, like she was basket weaving.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So, and she did the layback.
She skated to a river, runs through it. It was a river run through it.
Like, I just don't remember, but I remember that my sister and I went to the rink the next week and we tried everything that we saw her do. This is like, we rented a TV to watch it live. The only other way we watched skating was when we went to my grandma's house. She would record everything she saw on TV so that we would, when we came, we would watch them at her house. So we would then watch it and then we would try everything we saw the next day or the next time we skated. Like, that was how skating influenced me, was like you said, a little bit like you took this from this person and this from this person's. We saw it and we tried it. And so in a way where like everyone could look on their Instagram or YouTube or whatever, like every kid has a phone and every kid has access to it, and you don't know who your Olympic champion is. Like, what are you doing in the sports?
Well, that's why I think the scores
When you
are
don't
bad.
know.
Because think about it, the scores are arbitrary and they change the actual scale that it's judged on from year to year to year. And that's due because in Instagram, Twitter society, if you say something's a world record, people will pay attention. So there's always a world record. It's why you're not going to get rid of doping, because we have a whole society built on social media that's built on someone beating a record. So no one's watching someone run and be like, oh my God, he has the most beautiful stride. Let's give him a 6.0 for artistry, right? That's why there's always going to be doping.
Yeah.
Now, when you go, but the points have made it so that the people of today don't understand the quality of the people that came before them, because if they, let's say, even
That's
like,
true, because it's all about the points. So it's all about what you do and not
right. And do you
what
think
you
that
bring.
Loena Hendrickx is better than Una Kim? No. Okay, but she probably earned a higher point total. Right.
Well, okay. Just talking about the ladies for a second. I was sort of shocked, again, not someone who has ever landed a triple Lutz, triple toe. To my eye, that first combo in the free skate was very problematic, and it was not called as such. Is this already like this like Luna bump that we're getting?
Yes, because she's the Ashley Wagner. She's the only person that has any personality on the ice. It actually looks like she enjoys what she's doing.
She does. And also, I want to say before I forget that they finished the line of rhinestones in the back of her costume. Remember, we were saying how it stops? Now it goes around and it looks fantastic. Sorry, I just like, I know that that's out of the blue, but like, I really appreciate that it looks so much better. And she looks great because she's enjoying the program more. She's selling the program more. She looks trained and sharper, right? Like, she's fighting for the spot at Worlds, but she believes in herself more. She's selling the program. Gubanova was second, right?
Yes.
Her entire long program, her eyes were down. The entire program, even during her step sequence, she went to bow, her eyes were down. Loena, who performed with us on Stars, is learning how to perform for the audience. She's not just out there checking off each box. Now she's performing, and I love that about like, maybe that's the confidence from having won things and now, you know, fighting for the podium. She believes in herself more, but I enjoyed it more.
Yeah,
I want her to visit you, Yuka, and Kurt, because she obviously is listening to you about the rhinestones of her dress, Alyssa, and she will be listening to you. I mean, I saw, you know,
it looks fantastic now.
Right, and I think that now she could, like, if she could work on the skating skills and really get power from her edge. And that connection to the ice, it would be good, because her skating skills are lacking. But I actually think, okay, her persona is becoming so big, and skating is a star-driven sport. And Cowrie had personality last year, and then she did the same thing where she went, right? She went classical and went, right? I think that Luna's personality is becoming so big that the judges might just put her first at Worlds so that we can actually have a star.
I like that, because you know what? I want to see that in skating. I don't want to watch someone skate with their eyes down the whole time. And
but what's fascinating about Monica, because I think you're right, there was sort of, she's had the rough fall on the Grand Prix. She was the defending champion here, and it seemed very like, okay, I need to do as clean as I can.
Right? Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, I get that.
The short,
but her short is not. I liked her shorts. It was fantastic.
Personality. It was such a different approach for her. I have been enjoying that short program all season. And I have to be honest, I was surprised it was judged as low as it was in the short, because I think Nina was ahead of her. But and Nina also has a very lovely short program, actually. But for Gubanova, I was like, I think I want more of this short program energy.
Gubanova needs like a Pilates movement coach, like a one-on-one person, because her upper spine is so stiff, and your upper spine is how you relate to music, and hers doesn't move. And it's like a rigid thing. And it's why she's like looking down. Her whole movement kinetic chain is so tight that she can't actually interpret the music as well as she
and
could.
maybe that's why the short program works, because that movement is different. But I thought like it's just the personality in the short, like she gave us personality in the short program, and the free was devoid.
He looks rigid,
different. It was unique. It stood out.
I loved that. It was great. I also think Nina's short is conceptually good, but not executed the way I think it could be choreographically. Like I watched it again because I haven't really enjoyed it because of her. She's also finishing her movements better. She is not throwing things away like she was before. I don't think that her extension, especially in her feet, is there, but she's taking the time to make the movements more intentional than she was before. But I don't think the execution of the short program matches what the intention of the choreography is, because like when you watch it, it's her skating skills and her lacking in skating skills.
She's also tight in her jumps, like, and I think she's tight all around. But the skating skills and then the jumps, kind of landed a little bit tight and flat-footed. But I'm so glad that she said that she wanted to beat Luna, and then I'm so glad that Alyssa Sisney said that's funny, because she's so much more interesting to me now. Like before, she'd be like,
yeah, that's true.
Random second place, like Belgian girl. Now I'm like, oh, she's feisty. Let's watch this, right? Like I'm so much more interested because she gave it.
Has to believe that. If that's what's motivating her, and she ended up on the podium at Europeans.
That's fantastic. That's great.
Final, like if that's what's driving you, honey, have at it. Like,
Jonathan, I didn't make you watch Canadian Nationals. I was kind, right? I was kind there.
Yeah, I mean, I was following along with the scores, and I was like, okay, I think I.
No, you missed the broadcast. It was the person that bugs you with the person who bugs me the most as a commentator.
No, it was Rod. Oh my God.
No, it was KMT and Weaver together. Okay. And they were having not their real personalities, but their skate. You've never heard KMT speak in this upper register before. And people were like falling all over the ice, and she'd be like, a lot of good things really were happening in that program. Like it wasn't about sports. I don't know what that was, but that was not sports announcing. We learned nothing about the sport. It seemed like skating is really hard, and we're all out here. And yes, they did I love skating. Like it was so uncomfortable. And then it was so uncomfortable. If you had a brain, like, and you could sniff bullshit, it was so bad. It was unwatchable.
I didn't watch anything except the boy who was third. I don't even remember
the boy who was third. Come on, Alyssa. And why did you watch the boy who was third, Anthony Paradis, in that
Thank
outfit?
you, Anthony.
Because Canada
it came up on my YouTube feed, and he started out the program and he was rolling on the ice in his free program at the beginning, and that takes balls to do that, because it like you lose, you know what I mean? You lose your momentum at the start of a program, but the fact that he cared more about that program, like to do that at the beginning, I just love that. And then he had the boot thing, and he knew exactly what to do, and that's the only thing I saw, because you made me watch Europeans.
But it's
Johnny Weir. Wait. Johnny Weir walked so Anthony Paradis could run. Okay. Anthony Paradis changed the color of his nail polish between the short program and the free skate, Jonathan. Okay.
I did see
amazing.
Legend. Okay. Like legend. In the men's event at Skate Canada.
About the commentary at Europeans, at least on the world feed, is because I'm assuming Mark was doing the show in the UK or whatever he's doing now. So they had Chris do it. And he also, especially in dance, tends to be just like generically complimentary for the most part. But he was doing a good job. And this is something I miss in the commentary, is where they're building the excitement during the event about new leader. Will it be enough points? Like there's some sort of like excitement into how the event is unfolding, which is something I've been sort of missing from a lot of the commentators, is like the build of an event. and the excitement of who's going to be the new leader and that sort of stuff. So I thought he did a good job in like building suspense that way, if not always super insightful commentary. He was building the excitement for the event.
Canada was the opposite of that. Okay.
Speaking of excitement, and back to Europeans, Nina, like I assume that she skates that free program every day. Like it looks like she's fairly consistent, and her jumping technique is actually stabilized, I think, a little bit more. It looks a little bit less like pre-rotated. But she got so excited at the end of her program, and I love that. Like, I don't care if you do that every single day. I mentioned this earlier too. Get excited. Show us you're excited. Don't be like another one. Like, I love that she got so excited.
Who don't run their programs. Like the Canadian men, it was so obvious that like none of them do run throughs. Do you get
you can't expect to do well at a competition unless you train, and you can get away with it for a year of your life. Like I've trained with people who don't train, and they have a great year, and you're like, how come I can train and have a bad year and you can train and have a good year? But it catches up to you. And if you can't do a run through without skipping something every time, you're not running through your program. Like that's not a run through. You're not training. You haven't gotten to play. You have to do it. If you fall on everything, that's where you start. But you have to start somewhere, and you can't skip. And that's not being honest with yourself.
You can see it in the hesitation when Roman Sadovsky goes into certain elements that he just hasn't run the program, that there's no muscle memory. Like you can tell when someone has muscle memory and it's just like
I don't know how you can. I know the Russians used to do that long time ago. They never trained full programs, and they would say that they were like, we don't train full programs. And you're like, how do you expect to do it at a competition? But you cannot.
They had help.
Train
some of them allegedly had some help without the training of the programs, right? Like, but even
why do
now,
you think they're so good now? Because now they're training the programs and they have help.
Yes. So, yeah. Listen,
I'm intrigued, folks, about this Paris event.
Wait. Before we go, Kimmy, respond. Okay, so I know she didn't have a great skate hair. I love the blonde hair. But don't you think her skating has improved so much since last year? She looks like a young Carolina. Like she's polished. She has extension, even though she has such long arms and legs. Like she knows how to extend. And I really thought though that like her ability to perform, that's not exactly the word I want. I thought her movement and her quality of skating has improved so much since last year, even though her results were lower because she struggled with the jumps. Like I thought she's improved so much, and I'm very curious. Like it's the Carolina, like step stool.
She needs to move to Japan with Carolina and Yuma. Okay, it's like I don't think being coached by your sibling is healthy. I personally, anytime when Nastia would be like, "Oh, I love training with my father," and I'd be like, "Look at Nastia's Instagram now." Like I don't know that was the best choice, right?
Do you feel the same then with Loena and her brother?
Yes. I believe that she would compete better if she trained with Raphael, and it's not because her brother's not a good coach. I don't think it's healthy to be coached.
It's hard. It's very hard.
By your sibling, because a coach sometimes has to be adversarial to you, right? And how can you have that healthy dynamic? And we watch so many people lie through it. It's also not healthy for the other people in the rink, because the other people know that the coach is, of course, going to spend more emotional energy on that person. Like there was a dance team, like Kristen and Igor have, their daughter skates, but they had another team that was at that level, and that other team left. And I was like, of course they left, because whether it's true or not, a parent is always going to wonder, are you giving more attention to your kid than mine? It's just human nature, right? And it's subconscious, or it's this, or it's that little extra energy. Like, are you going to be getting the 3 a.m. idea about your daughter's team? Or are you going to be getting a 3 a.m. team about the siblings who also ballroom dance, right? Like, it's just human nature. Of course, they're going to leave, right? And the coaches know that, but I think that, I don't think it's healthy to be coached by yourself. And I don't think it's healthy for anybody else in the rink. I think you will eventually feel, if you are someone that's in a parent, not, that sibling, that you're just funding that other person's skating, like, so I think that you need that separation. Like, and she's making money now with shows to where she could work with, a Raphael. I just think it would bring her to that next level. Like, get rid of
because I think she has the potential. I really like her skating, and I I noticed like last year she skated like a junior, and this year I just see that like there's such big improvements in a year.
She was particularly strong at Swiss Nationals this year.
And she skates maturely, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it was interesting because they had the other Swiss girl, of course, in fourth place here, whose jump technique visually to me was a bit more confusing. I don't know how to proceed appropriately. There is something tough for me to watch in Kimmy's skating.
Mhm.
That seems a little fragile to me.
Mhm.
And I think I hope anyways that will improve as she matures. And I think that it's not a sprint for her. It's a marathon. I hope that they have that patience for it.
I think one of the other things is that in general, you want to feel when you're watching athletes that you are watching people that look healthy and athletic, right? And I think that part of the thing is that when the Russians started to do this spinning jump technique, is that everybody became much thinner, right? Because the people that succeed become thinner, right? And I think, and then that's also like certain countries that, you know, ethnicities that have smaller frames do better, right? But unfortunately, that's not relatable to the average public, right? And if you look at gymnastics, there are multiple ways to get to the top. And it's fabulous because now you have like the rainbow of ethnicities and they've all found a way to be good in gymnastics and they have different avenues, which means that every person from every culture. That's why, like, if you watch gymnastics before, maybe people would be like, that's some white people shit, you know, like, and you're like, no, now it's like everybody can be good at gymnastics. Well, they have to change the rules so that everybody can be good at skating, because if everybody can't be good at skating, you can't build the sport. You can have all
100% agree.
You can have all of the competitions in whatever country you want, but if that country can't be good because that body type isn't going to be as successful, you have a real problem. And I think if you go back to the 92 Olympics, when I first got into it, right, you had Surya, Midori, Christy, Nancy, they were all athletic and they all had different bodies. And you didn't ever have that feeling of like, oh my God, are they too thin to watch? Right. And I think now in skating across the board, you're like,
well, we're watching girls compete and not women.
Right. But then when they become
means
older,
it's accessible only to girls and not women.
yes. And then they have short careers, right? And then, right? Or you're taking puberty blockers to stay that thin. And then your entire fleet of women skaters might get injured the Olympic year. You know, like you think about this, like that's, you know, how that happens. Because those puberty blockers, there was an article the other day about how they cause osteoporosis. Yes. And it's like, oh, so funny how that happens, right? Like, like do you remember I had a pyramid of the Atari girls, and it was like they went down like dominoes that Olympic season. But think about it, if you're taking puberty blockers and you're not eating, you're essentially just like, and then you're doing how many repetitions of quads, of course you're going to all have injuries the Olympic year. And then like, even if you're not telling us you're doping, you're telling us you're doping. Okay, like it's like you're actively telling us. So it's just how that works, you know, like, hello, the sky is blue, you know. Remember when Tuktamisheva competed 13 times and she would like have energy at the end of her program? Watch a video of her at 2015 Europeans, how fast she was. That girl was,
she skated clean at every one, right?
Every one.
And then added in the triple axel mid-season, no problem.
No problem, right? After she stopped taking, like, slow.
Do you remember Junior Worlds that year when the Russian team barely made it to the free program, the women's Junior Worlds, after they banned that drug? That was the most interesting
that's
thing ever.
They all pulled out.
Yeah, well, only one made the free skate. Two did
right, but remember that they had to like come up with...
Three made it, two did the short, and one did the free skate. And it was wild to see the whole season and then Junior Worlds because they banned that drug.
That's how Queen Ma and Honda won.
Oh, I miss watching her skate. How did she do at Japanese Nationals? Did she compete?
She didn't do great. She didn't do great.
Oh, I mean,
No, she got the gold medal in my heart, and that's the most important thing. Okay, like
great.
I don't even care. Okay, I was like, there's some like there were like 17 boring girls, and then there was Mar and Honda. And you know what? I didn't care. I was just like, she could do whatever. I'm
Yeah.
loving this for her. I love this for us. Okay, she picks all the right music. She has all the right dresses. She goes to all the right choreographers. Maybe not all the right jump coaches, but who cares? Okay, like I just want to see her skate and be pretty. Like she did a lovely La La Land, The Little Mermaid. Like,
For instance, she would probably not do a program to Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats.
you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Love her. Yeah. Yeah.
Good segue into the pairs.
Okay,
Which we have to do fast.
modeling
We have
photos.
to do. We have to do
Well,
fast. because
have I
need to
seen
go.
the Mateo modeling photos? I've known about those for over a decade.
Right. Can you even believe that that's the same person that
Yeah.
could like be doing those poses? Then when he goes out to compete in skating, he's like deer in the headlights, right? He's not expressing cats. He's never looking at that new girl that he's jumping side by side with.
Well, it's interesting because
What's up with that? Like they're great together, although she skates very forward, but like she has more personality than him.
yeah. I mean, I've always rooted for him because I've just had a crush on him. But it was actually Rebecca and Filippo here who,
Yes.
again, sort of emerged as the most interesting program to me of this event in their free skate.
But I think because there's 3 Italian teams,
Mhm.
that has made each of them more interesting because they're all different, but we're watching them because I don't know if they have 2 or 3 spots, and I don't really care. Like, but because there's 3 of them fighting for the top Italian spot, it's become exciting
Yeah.
for them,
Yeah.
for Europeans, for Italian nationals. Like that pushes each of them, and I think that that's the sort of thing that can make
I
skating more
think they were
exciting.
using Luca Lanotte as their choreographer for the free skate. And again, I was just so thankful because again, pairs like as opposed to ice dance, which seems to still be giving us a wide variety of free dances, pairs was another one that kind of became formulaic on us. And it was
100%.
ultimately Rebecca and Filippo's free skate that was the most interesting to me. I don't respond to the Georgian pair, and
The hideous teal blue costumes. I was like, oh, I'm glad that Eteri is bringing her level of taste to Georgian pair skating. This is I love this for her. She's really
the other one that was a tough watch for me was the Hungarian pair and their antics in the kiss and cry after the short program of like, we're being victimized and this is atrocious, we should be higher. Like I was not a fan of that overall.
Aren't you glad that they did it? She gave you something to talk about, right? Like,
yeah, I suppose.
You know what? She is from the homeland of Alyona Kosternaya, who falls and still gets mad at the judges for not loving her enough. Like,
I watched her free skate at I don't know something. Kosternaya, and I was thinking that I mean when she does the triple flip, double axel to the start, I was like, oh, she has such good jumps. But out of the Eteri camp, how many of those girls do you think could actually move on to pairs or dance? Like they can't skate, but Kosternaya could skate.
Right.
And here it shows she has the ability to make it past 17, and she can keep up with another person because she had the ability to actually skate and to actually jump, not pre-rotate her jumps. Made me realize that, like, pardon?
She came from Yelena's school.
Well, they taught her how to jump and skate.
Yes.
Much better than the other ones learned how. So it was interesting to think about, like, could any of the other ones keep up with a partner like that?
That big open jump technique, she was never able to get the quads like the other ones. And then
I'd much rather watch her skate.
Me too. Yeah. Me too. But it also can cause injuries when they're then trying to get you.
That's true. When she's trying to do the quads.
Yes. And then they're trying to make you lean enough to do those quads. Like you run into problems, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you start to break your leg and things like this, right? So I mean, like the bizarre injuries that they have in Russia, like they really find new ones, right? That you're like, how did that happen? Right? Like, hello. Yeah. I thought the pairs, okay. Can we talk about Rebecca's triple sow? Alyssa. Maybe not your favorite jump as a skater, but
she fights for it, and it was a little bit better here, I thought.
We got the cue.
Like she found her feet. Sorry, she found her feet better. Like it wasn't seesaw and merry-go-round and everything else.
How intense do you
Like,
think that
you know?
girl is to like be doing a jump with that kind of a technique? Like that takes a lot of chutzpah, right? Like
It really does, because like when you have great technique and you go up and you land every time, that's great. But like when you don't have great technique, every time you try the jump, it's a shot in the dark.
Mm.
And that takes a lot of guts to continue to fight that hard for it every single time.
Alyssa, just say it. It takes a lot of talent to jump that badly.
But like, okay, so maybe it's not her fault because maybe she learned bad technique, or maybe
that's obvious.
That is, you know what I mean? Like, but it's too bad. But to land on her feet so well takes almost more talent than Minerva's triple sow, which is perfect. Although her throw triple sow was beautiful. But like, it's harder to do that. Not that we want to watch it because it takes more, like, you don't know what's going to happen every time you do it, but to have technique that bad is hard.
And again, if with different jump content, they could have easily won. I mean, because they were losing so many points by doing the double axels in the short program, and then lost on the knockout here. I mean, if they are ever able to replace that double axel in the short, I think they will surge forward several places.
I think they're working on her jump technique though, because I do notice an improvement in it. Okay. But to change your jump, to change how you jump, takes a long time. And if they're competing at Grand Prix and the Grand Prix final and Italian nationals and Europeans, it's not happening this year. Like they're trying this much, but you can't.
Like your body's going to default to muscle memory no matter what.
And you can't do a huge change when you're just trying to land the jump. Maybe next summer they can, take it apart a little bit more, but you can't do it in the middle of the season.
It kind of paralyzed Mal as soon as they like talked about changing her jump technique. Like she went from second in the world to like tanking for 2.
But when I went to Yuka and Jason, they revamped my jump technique, and I Zamboni the ice for the entire summer until 2 weeks before Skate Canada. And I was like, I have to get myself together because I'm about to compete at a Grand Prix. But it took me that long to figure things out because, you're changing how you've done something your whole entire life.
I think that, you should think about changing your jump technique before you become second in the world, because the pressure at that point is like, you can't like fix it with that pressure and like you become.
But it works. It works until a certain point, and then you're like, it's not good enough. Kind of like Tiger Woods continually changing his swing. Mm-hmm. He could do that because he had different goals in mind than just being at the top. He wanted to stay at the top and be better. But if you just are trying to get to the top, whatever you have works. Then you're at the top and you're like, well, it's not going to work forever. I better do something about it. Yeah. They're trying to get to the top. Now they're there. Now they have to do something about a triple sow because they need that triple sow in the short program.
Yeah.
So Italy has 2 spots for Worlds.
I was going to ask about that. So which 2 that are going, do you know?
I mean, it's fascinating because, of course, I would think that like going into this event, it was actually Lucrezia and Matteo that were very solidly third ranked among them. And then I think this must upheave everything because Sarah was in the Grand Prix final. Was there another Italian team in the Grand Prix final?
Rebecca and Filippo were at the Grand Prix final.
They were also in the Grand Prix final.
I thought so.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, me personally, I just like Rebecca and Filippo, so I would be sending them. But I have no idea how this is going to go down for them.
I would do 3-team skate off. Put it on YouTube, or put them all at Challenge Cup, one way or another. I think that Italy should make them skate again. Get us all behind it. Get us all talking about it, and it'll make them all better. And that experience of the pressure of a pressure situation like that will make them all stronger for the future. No matter if they win or lose, it'll make them all like iron sharpens iron, right? This is how the Crowley Ranch system, like, the design without the doctor, like it's designed for the competition to like make you better. I think that you could do that and then you could post it and build the sport because people are talking about Italian skating. They're a woman away from
I know, but Matteo was fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Matteo they said that he was injured, and I don't know what his injury was, and you could tell in his free program that it was all about getting to those jumps, and I know that he can perform so much better. But man, were those jumps good, and I love watching him skate. So they
I
have.
think he's about to have hip surgery.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think the surgery happens now.
Yeah. So he's not going to
Like-
World.
he's not going to Worlds. Well, better now for next season. But shoot, what kind of hip surgery?
He's going to be out for like 7 months at least.
Yeah, that's tough. No wonder
Tough.
he was looking like he was working through that. But
Yeah. With the new short
That's
program, that was
frustrating.
oddly like, did you catch the title of the new short program music? It's like two men making out, or I don't know what it was called, but I was like, oh, okay. All right.
I don't remember his program. I said I just wrote that I didn't think I'd like the program for him, but it works.
Yeah.
But
Well,
maybe it looked new. Maybe that's the problem.
because he had been struggling with the other one, so I guess they just decided to just try
Yeah,
it.
and you know what? When you're injured, you can only focus on one thing, and it's clear that he focused on the jumps, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I know that like his ability to perform and do everything else is so much better. It just like sometimes you can only pick one thing, and they picked the jumps, and that's what they should have picked,
Yeah. And it
and
worked.
that's fine, and it worked.
Really
Yeah.
skates like a nice, normal person. Do you ever notice that? Like, he doesn't seem like he has one of those crazy skater personalities. He seems
No, he seems fun and approachable,
Rounded.
and I just lost my.
like very normal. Like, I feel like he would go and be a very nice person. I don't know. Like, you just get this like energy from him. Like, he might live in a world with Mai Mihara. Like, they could just hang out together. Maybe like go to a coffee
Be
shop.
lovely. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what was your moment of Europeans?
Alyssa, go. I need to think.
Okay, one of them was Charlene and Marco winning
Defend
because
this.
we didn't discuss them, but like they
I
deserve
think it
to
was
win.
right that they won. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, right
yes.
that they won. They deserve to win. I love that they are taking the fact that they were beaten by the other team, that like they're fighting harder and harder, and I love that it was acknowledged that they are better.
I mean, part of the moment for me was the crowd itself, because it took programs that we had seen throughout the Grand Prix season, everyone starting to sort of like settle into those programs, and then to see the audience like go with them through the builds of them, it was pretty exciting. I mean, for me, it was really that middle pack of dancers with the French and the Finnish and the Czech. Like there was some like very enjoyable skating for me to watch one after another. But I'll still go with the Finnish team on that one, because there was rotational lifts.
Both Finnish teams.
Yeah. But especially the program of the higher placing one with like the angular arms. It will just, I don't know how it will ever not be my moment of the week. I think it's so cool.
I think for me, it was the fact that Bologna on ice just did so well, where there was like a huge crowd. And then they had another one at the Polavela that did really well. And then Europeans did really well. And then when it was so obvious that Papadakis and Cizeron are likely coming back, I thought, oh my God, finally the sport is building. To me, I just like had this like moment where you could almost relax. In a way, when I was watching Canadian Nationals, I was depressed, being like, oh my God, the sport is dying. But then I'd like go to Europeans, I'm like, oh my God, it's building. We're building.
But, like in the fact of Europeans, it's been dominated for so many years by Russia. So no other country had a chance, except in the men's event, to make the podium. So that kills the sport in other countries when it's one country winning, right? Like it's like the American women's softball, where they just stopped doing it because America was, I can't remember what, like, you know, the US was winning every single time. So no other country really puts in the effort.
Well, imagine what's going to happen in Belgium now. For all
so that's their already with pairs, and it's like, it's nice to see. You can see that now they all have to step up, because now they're not fighting for third, they're fighting to be the champions. So that puts you at a different level of, what do you do for choreography? How do you make your pair program different from every single pair program out there? You know, how do you do the Sway and Han, where it's like, that's clearly the winner. They all now have to make that decision, is how do we stand apart from the crowd, not how do we get third.
I really think that like Sarah Conti and Nicolo, like I think that they lost the season when they decided to keep that same boring free skate from last year. It was like,
and that's why even when you're talking about a skate off, Dave, I bet they would be like, don't worry, we'll just stay home. we'll just count this one out and revamp for next season. I wonder if they're ready for this season to be over.
I don't know. They're reigning world bronze medalists. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I have to say the Italians are always so well dressed.
Yes.
I think it's the Anna and Luca effect.
Oh, okay. What about your queen, Valentina Marquez? What would she wear like outside of the rink? Was she stylish?
I don't know, because I was wearing skating clothes, with the exception of Natalie and Fabienne, when they were like, she would come to the rink in a sundress and then she would change into her skating clothes, and then on her break she'd go back out in her sundress. And like, I watched that and like, because the rest of us just wore skating clothes all the time, right? You're just wearing your sweats, your skating clothes. Like, why bother changing? Because you're wearing your skating clothes the whole day. And I just remember watching Natalie do that and be like, oh, there's a different way to do this.
What about Stefania, like Rockney's wife? Like, was she giving you the good Italian drama, like when she's walking around outside?
I don't know. I don't really remember.
That's a no. That's a no. Alyssa, it's like really.
No, she lived with me for a while, and I can't remember what she. Like, I'm sorry, I just can't remember what she wore. What
about the Canton girls? Because like the Canton girls were a vibe, right? Like all of those girls.
But that's dance.
Yes. What were they wearing?
And in the dancing world, then you're like, whatever you're wearing is.
Okay, can you explain a Canton girl to us? Like, what were they all wearing back in the day? What was Alexandra Aldridge wearing? And Allison
wearing expensive in style clothing that you couldn't do a triple jump in a long program with.
And they looked great doing it, right?
Oh, of course.
It was like the Hills, right? Like in my mind.
But I always want to like dress like Meryl Davis. I always loved her style.
What was she wearing? Like,
like it just seemed natural to her. It wasn't like.
Was she driving like a souped up like Volvo? Like, what's Meryl driving to the rink at that point in time?
I have absolutely no. Do you think
those girls were sick?
Things? Do you think
those girls were a vibe? They were like coming to.
They were a vibe that I couldn't match, and I didn't even try.
Like, it was.
Look at me out in the woods wearing the dirtiest clothes ever.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Like today, the skating kids, like at the rink, like they don't know how to, they're not like dressing like that. Like they don't. I'm like, you're an ice dance. Get it together, okay? Like, come on. It's why. But do you notice that? Like, I'm sure that the Ice Dance Academy of Montreal, if you were to be there, I'm sure also a vibe, right? Like when you have Madison.
I was gonna say Madison chalk dress as well, and when you have the highest people in the rink dressing well, then everyone's gonna, show up well put together. But like in freestyle, you gotta wear what you can do, a 7 triple long program. You can't wear your scarf and your cool hair. You know what I mean? Like you just gotta do what you can do. Sorry, he wants to go.
Amazing.
Well, Holden Etcher looks sexy, everyone.